Julie. I have different names.
Okay.
I didn't want, that's why I was just gonna start talking to you. I don't want to mess up.
So one thing I would like to say, we're going to start up. I want to thank you all for your input. You had some very, very good ideas. Now, no one can promise anything will actually be done about them, or all of them, but they will be going into the hopper because we're looking for ways to make this work. And there's some sympathy with some of us on the faculty, especially about the online books. The search function is nice, but most books have an index. Now, is it as good as the search function? Not really, but you know, it hits the major topics, and so you know, but a lot of it is a case of computers, of course, are not meant to be reading devices. They don't have the soft background that a good e-reader would have. I one time swore I'd never have an e-reader because I didn't like using them, but I recently got a tablet that has both Nook and Kindle applications on it, and they're excellent. I actually find I can enjoy reading on it, which is nice because when I travel, I sure don't like to carry books. You know, the tablet weighs less than one book, and it has 50 on it. So, got plenty of reading material. So anyway, what we want to do, Stephanie and Daniel, are you both back online?
Yeah.
Okay, great. If you look, now this is for Stephanie and Daniel. The week 3 in-class activity 1 has in it a download. It's a Word document, so it is something you can download and write on. I'm going to pass out copies to everyone in the room. And this is an exercise that I want you to simply follow the directions.
That's it?
Simply follow the directions, and then you will turn it back into me.
Alrighty.
You guys can submit it by upload. One for Michael there too. No, there's a subtle way to get into Laura's grade. I know. I knew where it
So I'm sorry, is it the class activity 1 or class activity 2 that we're doing right now?
We're doing number 1.
Okay.
That's number 1.
You said to hand it back to you when you're done.
Yep, when you're done, send it back to me.
Questions?
Okay, Daniel and Stephanie, just let me know when you've submitted the assignment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm finding it a little confusing until I read all of the instructions.
Uh-huh. And then?
It just so my
Well, they haven't submitted it yet, so let's hold off for a second.
Have a funny story. So I failed that one. Yeah.
How do you want me to put an X through all the even numbers on this page? Do you want me to like
You can
italicize?
use the add function in Word. The track changes, or strike through, or whatever.
Okay.
Sorry, I know what you're saying. Because it's like jealous. You can have mine. I don't understand like you can't EP format. You can't double space it, you can't do anything in it. You can't do this type of thing. Double space. Not and you cannot aim.
You can, but it's a lot of work.
I guess I just don't know how to figure it out.
Yeah. You have to do it as more exactly done manually. Or you should go in and set it up.
So when you say on the reverse side of this paper divide 1589 by 15, do you want us to just write it underneath it, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
I guess I have to redo mine because I saved it and just went to submit it and it's not in my documents. So I apologize for taking so long.
Check your
Okay.
download.
Yeah. Yeah, Chad just suggested you check your download folder.
I'm like, there you go. See, I like the black on here, you know. Stronger. Oh, well. That what? Why are you writing on stuff? No, sir. No. I know what you said on my paper. If you, the other one, duh. So, whatever. I hate this. Oh my god, why? What? So do I have to, what the? Nope. Nope, no. Yeah. No. So do I need to make these? Do I need to make this stuff into paragraphs? So.
She's the one that whose class I'm struggling in.
Yeah.
Ah. I said, ah.
Why can't I tap make here? What, like 6? I did 5.
That's okay. You get it like.
It's 5. I remember that one time. What's this? How great. Oh.
Okay, Daniel, how close are you?
I'm getting pretty close.
All right.
Just a few more seconds and I should be done.
All righty. Just let me know when you've submitted it.
I shall.
Why can't I I can't like scroll on the document itself. Sometimes I feel like if I just hit the keyboard like hard enough, it's not working. Why can't I focus? I don't care. I'm so confused. I literally just. Why is it doing this?
What are you trying to do?
Look, ready?
Yeah, I'm coming. Get that. Your nostrils are flaring. Stop it.
Honestly.
Are her eyes rolling?
Always.
Look,
They're
ready?
fluttering at me too, though.
And it won't let me, I obviously have more than this right here. And I can't see it.
What you just send to me?
The other little guy was hiding.
All right, as long as you figured it out, I'm happy for you.
Do you see what it's doing?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
First off, stand the whole thing across.
Well, like this is bothering.
Well,
I just don't know how
that's-
to. Why is it? It's never done that.
No, that's an odd thing for it to
I'm
do.
like, oh.
It wants me to
Like
look for
stalking.
something.
Go into the document without.
Okay. Okay, sweet, yes. I guess that could fall under like the bottom of another month.
All right.
That's not my fault.
Are you ready, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm about to submit it.
All right.
If I copy and paste my reference.
And okay, there's the tab. Submit. Ah. Oh wait, I forgot to save it. Crap.
Okay, submitted.
I'm looking for it. Let's see. It's in the downloads. Well, it's not in the downloads area.
Anyone else's discussion with this personally?
Give me some stuff. Can I turn that off?
Ah, there we go. Okay. Submitted.
Did you do it on the? Maybe. Did you replace them? Finish your next discussion.
Okay.
I submitted, yeah.
All right. Then let's talk about this.
Why did you do that?
Why did I do this?
Yeah.
Well, why do you think?
Like,
To see
listening
if
to the
they were
directions.
understanding, like, to listen to, you said read the instructions.
Yeah, listen to the instructions and then you go to, like,
Yeah.
read through it before you.
Yeah. Why? Because often what our tendency in this society to do is to start plowing through these things instead of following the directions. Karen, your instructor a mod or two ago, right? Karen tells the story of a psychology class she took in college. And the final was handed out, and it was long. It was like 100 questions. And the instructor said, read the instructions and follow them exactly. And so Karen looked at it, and the first instruction was, read this instruction and then do the instruction on question 100. She turned to question 100. It said, put your name at the top of the paper and turn it in. She was the only person in the class who got a score that wasn't a 0 on the final.
I remember her telling that story. That's why, like, when I first, like, seen it like that, I was like, I literally just read the last one.
Well, yeah.
I read the main instructions and then I read the last one.
Yeah, and sometimes that works, and sometimes you'll find the last one tells you to do something, and the last one told you to do number 3.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the entire test. Now, Stephanie and Daniel, you'll get credit for doing this. That's the exercise here is when you're told to please do exactly as instructed. Directions. I said read the whole thing. Please do exactly as instructed. Follow the instructions for each statement fully. Ask no questions and do not check to see what other students are doing. When you finish, sit quietly and do not speak. Well, everybody did that. Read all statements before doing anything else. That's a giveaway that there's going to be a trick inside this. So, you just go down through here. The military actually has done things like this to see if people can follow directions for complex operations. They also used to do weird other things. When the guy that ran the submarine service, when a person wanted to be a submarine officer, he'd be called in for an interview. and the admiral that ran it, his name was Burke, by the way, would tell him to go into this room, and he would put him in the room was a broom closet, and then he'd lock the door. If you couldn't take being in an enclosed space in the dark, you could not survive on a submarine because you're in an enclosed space in the dark. So following directions is sometimes very, very critical. So this was really just, are you really paying attention? And that's as I said, you guys don't need to worry about your grade. Everybody's going to get credit for doing the assignment who's here. It was just an exercise in, again, communication.
Oh, excuse me.
He, in this case, is communicating with you that says, please do exactly as instructed. That is communication. So if you did that, you would do that, and Amber figured it out, having heard the story from Karen. You guys may have heard it too, but Amber figured it out. Everybody here in the room went through this, obviously had known this was coming or knew this one when they saw it. So I wondered if that would happen, especially when Karen told me she had told you the story before. But I thought, well, that's all right. Let's see how many people remember.
I had this done to us when we were in high school.
Yeah, it's a popular thing in communications
I fell for
classes.
I'm doing everything, and then when I finally got the write your name at the top and turned down, I was like, well.
Yep. I had the same thing. I mean, many of us have done exactly that because we are task oriented. Oh, this is a test. I need to just, if I do these things, then I'm done with it, right? So you do that, you get down to the bottom and you go, oh, dear, what next? I'm not quite like Karen's psychology instructor. I'm not going to flunk you because you didn't do it. But it's a word of caution. Watch out. When somebody gives you a set of instructions, follow them. Don't blindly charge. This is one of the things that I have seen with people who are trying to learn a skill. They don't listen. Somebody says, well, first you do this, and they're already doing it, and they mess it up. For you guys in the medical area, things like phlebotomy, you don't want to do that. You want to listen, right? And other things, because there are issues. Okay? So now we're going to do a different in-class activity, number 2. And this one, the instructions say we'll discuss it in class. All right? So what is going to happen is the 6 of you in this room are going out into the hallway and closing the door. And I'm going to talk to Daniel and Stephanie about the next phase of this little exercise. So go stand in the hallway. You don't have to face the wall or anything. Just stand in the hallway.
Okay.
Yep. I'm serious.
She's like,
I'm not punishing anyone. It's part of the game.
Get out of the room now.
I was like, is there more of this?
I know, that's what I was
I feel like I'm getting stretched out.
Okay. So here's what's going to happen. Can you all hear me pretty clearly?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to read a paragraph to you. One of you, and I'm going to let you two choose who's going to do this, but one of you is going to repeat the information in the paragraph to one person that I will call in from the outside. And then they will repeat what you told them to the next person from the outside until all 6 of them are back in the room. And then we'll go through it again and see how it's changed. This is called the rumor clinic. And if any of you have played the telephone game, it's a little like that.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here's the paragraph. Marvella had to get the courses she needed for graduation since this was her last term at school. She was a pre-med major, and the requirements were very numerous and specific for that major, so she didn't have much room for substitutions. She had already met most college requirements, but she still needed one more historical course and one more humanities course. Otherwise, what she needed were 2 advanced biology courses, and both were already full, and 1 particle chemistry course, which she dreaded, since chemistry was a particularly rough science for her. Marvella knew what she needed, but her advisor was not in his office, and she didn't know how to cut through the red tape to get the classes she needed. That's the paragraph. So,
Wow.
Long paragraph.
okay? Yeah.
That's
So,
all you, buddy.
No. I vote you.
Oh my God.
you two pick it out. I'm going to call someone in.
Here, we'll do rock, paper, scissors, and whatever you get, you say it. Got it?
Okay, we have to see each other first to know who's
No.
doing it accurately, right?
I can see you. I'll be 100% truthful, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Rock,
Rock,
paper,
paper,
scissors.
scissors.
I choose scissors.
Shut up. Okay, one more.
Rock, paper,
Rock.
scissors. I chose paper. Okay.
Okay, one more.
Rock,
Rock,
paper,
paper.
scissors. I chose scissors. I'm going.
All right. Sweet.
Oh, now I've got to remember that. Oh, no.
Okay, now I want you to repeat that paragraph to Amber.
All right, Ember, can you hear me clearly?
I think so.
All right. Okay. Mandela needed to graduate from courses in her school in order to graduate at a high. I've already botched it. Can I start over? Okay.
Okay, you're laughing.
Starting over.
I don't even know.
Mandela is looking to graduate from her college with a high degree in physics. However, she is held back by a few courses in chemistry, microbiology, and finances as well. That's all I got. All I can recall at the moment.
Okay, do you remember any more, Stephanie?
I remember that she knew what she needed. She had to get the courses that she needed for graduation, and that she knew what she needed. And that she was running into a red line or something, and that's what I remember.
Okay. Thank you. Now, what's going to happen?
I was trying to take notes, but you were talking so fast that I just didn't even.
And I was talking slowly for me. What I'm going to do is call someone else in, and you're going to repeat this information to them.
I don't even remember her name.
Part of the game is that I cannot give any clues.
Oh, good golly.
Yep.
I should not have come first.
I want to go. Oh, Michael.
Okay. Now, have a seat, Michael, because Amber is going to tell you something.
Oh my god. Okay. So, okay, so I think her name was Melina. Was having a hard time in school. And she knew what was stopping her. But she didn't know how to get there.
Okay.
This doesn't even sound right.
I know, I don't.
And then there was something. Okay. She had to take chemistry, biology, and that's as far as I
So Melina was having trouble in school. I'm like confused because you would like start and then like stop in the middle of it and then go to something else.
got. Now you know how I felt. Can I say that?
It's your story now.
Okay, that's my story.
Fair enough.
So, hope you got all that.
Yeah, she's having trouble and she took chemistry and biology and I just don't understand what it's like. So then do I have to tell your story to them?
Yes. The
Okay.
next person.
He
you-
like started laughing and like
Are
I
you
was,
ready?
and
You
then
wanna be next? All right.
Um,
So the story is.
I don't know what the story was. I can't even.
It's
Okay.
kind of
Have
like
a seat over here someplace
Someplace.
Yeah.
Because
because Michael is going to tell you a story.
so.
I don't like stories.
There-
That makes me nervous.
Now you're gonna be the one laughing because
I
you're the one.
know. So there was this girl, Melina. She was in high school, and she was having trouble in school. So she was taking biology and chemistry, and it was getting rough.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's it.
Are you done, Michael?
Yeah.
All right.
I have to tell this story? Oh my God.
I know. I forgot the middle part. Like I was like,
Next subject.
oh,
Okay.
You told me.
yeah, I did say that. I just didn't.
This is a listening
Now,
activity.
Alicia is going to tell you a story.
I think
Okay. So,
I think my comprehension is lacking.
yeah, I'm only gonna say what I know. I can't remember anything right now. Alright, so there was this girl named Melina, and she was in high school. And she was having a hard time in high school. She was taking biology and chemistry and stuff, and it was a rough time.
Now, guess what? You're going to get to repeat it to the next person who comes in.
Do you remember
That's like
any
almost
of it?
exactly what I was told, so don't tell that.
So this is
She
kind of
was
like that one
struggling
game
in
where
high
it's like,
school and
Telephone.
Yeah. I wish I wouldn't have gone first.
no.
Have seats,
No, you have to
and
tell her what I
Elisa
just told
is
you.
going to tell you a story.
So there was a girl and she
I even crossed my
named
legs.
Gina. She was in high school. She was struggling in biology and chemistry. That's all I remember.
You got that?
That's
I'm getting my movement exercise this evening.
I was gonna say it's getting less and less. You might as well just stay indoors.
Oh, she like screwed me. You don't even know. Like he was like, okay, and then there's on to a new thing. And I'm like,
All right. Now, Chad, who is going to tell you a story?
Well, there's a girl that named Yolisa, I believe. Oh, no.
Don't say anything.
Keep going. That was in high school, was having trouble with chemistry and I think math. That's all I got.
So
Right,
there's a
now,
girl named
repeat the
Lisa-
story, Chad.
There's a girl named Lisa in high school who was having trouble with chemistry and math.
Okay.
It altered so much.
It did. Just from me, it also.
You should have heard what I heard.
you should have heard what I heard. It was like,
It was like static.
yeah, it was like she would go and then stop in the middle of the sentence and start a different part. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
But now we're gonna hear the actual story.
Yes,
All right.
of course.
Sweet. Oh,
Okay,
that's so
Daniel,
cool.
Stephanie, you're still with us?
She's like, I don't remember.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to repeat the original paragraph.
There's a paragraph.
Yeah.
It is a paragraph. I'm not
A
joking.
paragraph. Marvella
Oh.
That one's under.
At
Had-
least they got an
had to get the courses she needed for graduation since this was her last term at school. She was a pre-med major, and the requirements were very numerous and specific for that major, so she didn't have much room for substitutions. She had already met most college requirements, but still needed one more historical course and one more humanities course. Otherwise, what she needed were 2 advanced biology courses, and both were already full, and 1 particle chemistry course, which she dreaded, since chemistry was a particularly rough science for her. Marvella knew what she needed, but her advisor was not in his office, and she didn't know how to cut through the red tape to get the classes she needed.
I didn't
Where
even
did you
hear
get high school
I
from?
didn't even hear
Okay,
half.
I think we told a full.
I didn't even know that
She
she
told
was a pre-med student.
Yeah, she told me she was in high school.
I said school.
And I never
I
heard
couldn't remember.
biology, chemistry, nothing.
Yeah, it didn't say anything about
Well, I heard biology, but it was like the classes were full, so she had to take something else. Not she was struggling and have a hard time.
That is so funny.
So this is how
She was having it rough.
this is how repetition leads to lots of changes. in these kinds of
Oh
things,
my
right?
goodness.
If you've played the telephone game, you know this one. We all played it in school at one point. We whisper a name. I remember this from my very early schooling because it's so ridiculous. We had about 12 kids in the school. I went to a school in a town of about 500 people in Virginia. So we had about 12 kids in the schoolroom, and it started off with there's a party Saturday night, and it ended up with the hippopotamus is in the pool because we would whisper to each other. Okay, so just absolutely ridiculous, right? But this is how communication can change messages and can get modified. This is kind of benign. I mean, it's kind of silly, right? But think about this in terms of looking at communication on the job, and especially when you're working with Chad, you're working in customer support, and somebody calls you up and says, "I have a problem," and they can't explain it. Okay. They just say, "This isn't working." Well, there's a lot of work. And in medicine, when we are talking about our patients, we have to be very, very precise. This is why we write notes, right? We want to be precise and have the details. But this kind of an exercise really is to remind us that when we hear things, and Stephanie was trying to take notes, and I was talking a little bit slower than I might otherwise, but I was not trying to talk slowly. If I had talked slowly, she would have gotten much more of the original message. However, the issue is that at least 50% of what goes into our ears, we don't retain. It's gone in just a few seconds.
Don't look at me like that. Okay, you should have heard what I heard. I didn't get half that.
Well, and that's typical. I expect to lose anywhere from a third to a half of the information on each retelling.
Well, we went from like a paragraph to
Yeah.
a sentence.
Couple of hundred words to a slightly long sentence.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what happens. And it's because people forget the details. There are a lot of details in here that are arguably superfluous. But they flesh the story out. They put a context. She's trying to get into med school. It's important for her to take these classes, and yet she can't take classes that she needs. So how does she get the other, everything else? And she really doesn't want the chemistry class, because it scares her. And she doesn't know what to do. Her advisor's not around, and she obviously hasn't been in school. She's nearly finished with school by now. She should have figured out how to get around the red tape, I would think. But nonetheless, it turns out to be a problem for her. So this kind of listening for the details. I didn't warn you what this was deliberately. Again, the exercise itself carries with it some credit in the class. The exercise is what's important, not what each of you did. But it does emphasize that when you are getting information that may or may not be important, you have to judge how important any of this stuff is, right? When you are getting information, you're already experiencing that with shift change. And you have too, Hope, with shift change. The information you're being given is important. Now, you have backup. You can always go into the patient record. You guys didn't have backup on here. And I wouldn't let Stephanie or Daniel correct you, nor did I correct them. That's part of the exercise. Notice I didn't say a word except.
I know, I looked at him and I was like.
Yeah, when she was telling me, he was just like, it's your story.
Right. Not my story.
It's the right story.
By this time, it was a very different story already.
I tried my best.
Pardon?
I tried my best to remember.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
So did I.
Yeah. I will tell you, everyone here did. But you can only remember what you heard. And since we lose at least 50% of it within seconds, we're already handicapped, right? So actually the story stayed a little more consistent through this entire thing than I thought it might.
Yeah.
At least she was still in school.
She was still in school, and there were biology and other courses that she had to take. So yeah. So, but this is how people miscommunicate, and this is why, especially in professionally, we write things down or we put them in our computer. We do something to record these things. Sometimes we will actually record them. Doctors used to, and many still do, when they were doing notes on a patient, they'd have transcriptionists and they'd simply record them in a tape recorder.
They still do that.
My nurses do
A
that.
lot of them do. A lot of them do.
From the night shift to the church.
We are moving more toward these systems like Dragon, which has actually gotten good. But first Dragon that I had was, oh God, what a joke.
You had to enunciate exactly
Yes.
how it wanted you to.
And then
come.
my wife would walk into the room and say something, and it wouldn't recognize her voice, and I would get this string of just characters. But now it's gotten to where it's pretty good, but you still have to check it out. But we're getting closer and closer to the ability to do that. But our brains still have to interpret, and we do have to communicate. When a doctor walks out and dictates notes, when does he do it? As soon as he walks out of the room, before he sees the next patient. And he does that because he knows he will confuse the data. Sometimes, and I've been there with doctors who do this, there will be an MA in the room who will literally be taking notes as the doctor is talking, because the doctor will be dictating to that person. And that's another way of handling it. This is another way to make sure that everything is done in real time. But again, when you are practiced with this transcription, you don't actually hear anything because it goes in your ear and out your fingers. And when you walk out of the room, you might look back and say, did I write that? Because you don't remember. You trained the brain to take the information, process it to the extent necessary, and then output it. And more, we want to do these kinds of things. This is kind of a silly, fun exercise. Everybody laughed a lot, which I'm glad to hear. Every now and again, somebody gets real frustrated and angry in these things, and that's kind of amusing too. But I can't laugh at somebody frustrated and angry. That's not very kind, because it's also natural to get frustrated when things like this occur. The thing to remember is to learn, when on the job, you learn to remember the important details. You learn to remember that Mrs. Smith fell at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You don't care what Mrs. Smith ate for dinner, or that she took a nap from 1 to 2, or any of that stuff. You don't necessarily care about that. You remember, you have the important stuff goes in and stays because you know you're going to have to repeat it. You've probably already written it into the chart, which is another form of learning. Anytime you use two different modes of communication pretty much simultaneously, you are much more likely to learn from it. You'll integrate it much, much faster. Now, the other thing about Mrs. Jones falling is you'll probably remember the next day what she ate because it'll integrate during your sleep cycle. Because we really learn in the rests. We learn physically, we learn muscle memory gets encoded in rests. And that's the process of dreaming, is that encoding in the long-term memory of the events of the day. Whether they seem related to them or not, we are encoding. So the stuff goes in, we just can't access it, and after a while the brain kicks it out completely. So the whole purpose here was partly to have some fun. It was certainly not to embarrass anyone. I hope no one was embarrassed. But the purpose here was to illustrate the issue of remembering of when you have a lot of information, you're going to lose a lot of it. As I said, I'm actually fairly impressed that as much stayed on topic as did, because I've seen this thing go completely off the rails. You know, end up talking, start off talking about Marvella in school and end up talking about a train ride in the Rockies. I mean, just really crazy. Yeah,
Marvella, and it went to Molina.
Right. Yeah, there's a name engraved, yes. But that really is one. I pulled this out of the old text that we used to use in this class because I just thought it looked like a good exercise to do.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it was really kind of fun to watch you guys react to this. And I'm glad you didn't take it too seriously. Okay, so questions, thoughts?
Questions.
Let me switch topics, just totally switch topics now. But it's still, I guess, about communication in a little bit. Do you have any concerns about the way things are going here?
As far as what? This
This class or at the school? You know, what we're trying to do is understand how things are going for you. I can sit here all day and say, oh, I had a great time in class tonight. The students are great. They're fun. They're a fun group, and y'all are. But that's my impression. So I'd like to know how y'all think things are going. This is not about me, but it could be about me, but it's also about the course, the class. Because we're always on a process improvement curve here. And with this transition we're going through right now, it's especially important for us to get some feedback.
I think we would remember more on like classes like this if we did more activities like this.
Yeah.
And, like,
Instead of just
Yeah.
lectures.
Yep, that's one of the reasons that that I've started doing this, and that's why we'll start off next week with a discussion. But thank you. Yes, that was one thing that after the first week I said, this isn't working for me. We need to make this a little more fun, because we all learn faster and better when we are enjoying it.
Yeah.
And that to me, and when I stop having fun, that's when I quit a job, and I don't want to do that right now. I'm not in a hurry to do that. I don't know what I'd do at home. I can only garden so much. And I go, but any other comments? Okay, thank you, Amber. That's a good bit of feedback for me.
At least one more person say something.
Do what?
At least
Overall,
one more?
yeah,
Okay.
overall this month, I'm I've been fluctuating between being whelmed and overwhelmed, whelmed and overwhelmed. And it's been sitting in that section for most of it. So with everything going on both here and outside.
Mm-hmm.
Hollow.
What was that,
I
Felicia?
said hollow.
I think I'm staying more
I'm agreeing.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'm more in the overwhelmed area this month.
Okay. Two things are going. Y'all are in medical classes with
But Chad and Daniel.
Yeah.
all but Chad and Daniel, right? But y'all are in medical classes the other night of the
Yeah.
week, right?
Yeah.
And those haven't switched over yet,
Not right.
and won't until
Probably
8-ish or so, probably about the time I come back from my break with my daughter's wedding, which ought to be real interesting for me.
Yeah.
But and so you still got the old structure that we've had in the medical plus what our struggle with what we're doing with the new structure here. Because I've actually been looking at the extra assignments I've thrown in the last 2 weeks have sort of been an experiment to see what's going to work. And I'll admit that y'all are experimental animals right now to that extent. But I think that I try to pick things that are at least relevant to the topic. But you know, what we need to know, what we need to have from you is feedback as to what's working for you and what isn't. We can't guarantee to fix everything that isn't working for you. I can't do anything about your job, for instance, or your job. And we can't compromise our classes either. And I know that puts you guys between a rock and a hard place. And, you know, that's not a fun place to be. I've been there. It'll ebb and flow. There'll be mods that you're feeling like you're going between whelmed and overwhelmed. And there'll be mods where you're feeling like you're going between a little bit of relaxation and being whelmed. It will always probably keep you pretty busy. But you'll go back and forth between, you know, feeling like you're able to handle it and then being times when it's going to be difficult. I will be brutally frank about this. That's life. I have been in jobs where I was, you know, seriously, you know, looking back on it, seriously close to going postal because of the people I worked with. Fortunately, I had a good relationship at home, and I was able to not do anything stupid. But it happens, and I've survived. I mean, it's been a long time, but I've survived. And, you know, that's really going to happen at times. Working in the medical arena, there are going to be times when you're going to say, I haven't had a day off in a week and a half. And you just have to keep going. And then things will ease up. So all I can say is let us know what is bothering you. We really like to hear, you know, things like that. What's going well? I really appreciated hearing that you guys find the people you need here to be accessible. That's good. That is our aim, all of us. You know, and even though those of us who are adjunct are not on campus every day, most of us can be reached pretty reliably by email. I try to respond to people as soon as I can, you know, do our best. Another thing is don't hesitate to ask for help. Now we're trying to work out what to do with jams. We recognize that when people work until, you know, 5 o'clock and have to be here at 6 and then have to go home for the kids, you know, hard for you to do jams. We're trying to figure out what to do about that. It's a toughie because you know, it's a working population. We know that. And so, you know, but we will, you know, if you need help in anything, you can ask. If one of us can't help you, we'll find someone who will be able to. You know, I'll tell you what, don't ask me for help in an accounting class. but I'll find you help. You know, that I can do. And forget computer coding. Past basic, that was it, for me. If I can't tell the computer to do it by voice or by key command of do this, then forget it. But we have people who can help, and you know that. And we're blessed to have Paul. He's unbelievable. But we also have a dedicated faculty. We've weeded out the people that weren't working pretty well. Now, we have some new faculty coming in as well. You'll meet them in the next few months, probably. Most of them are going to be Gen Ed. So we've got a new history teacher because Pat Massengill retired.
I heard he was hard. He had a lot of assignments.
He had a lot of assignments, but he was but I think the students, heard that, and
I
they were.
heard that he also failed most of his students because of the work not being able to be done.
Yeah, well, a lot of them liked him.
Yeah.
I never sat through one of Pat's classes, but he's not here. We have a new history teacher, having a couple of other new Gen Eds, and so I may end up going back strictly to medical because I've been fulfilling a lot of the Gen Ed stuff, and I probably will with the math and algebra and statistics, and probably keep doing professional development. I don't know about this class. I think we probably have a couple of more people coming in who can do this one. But, we are really trying to have a broad-based faculty. So we'll find out. But we really, we're serious when we ask for feedback.
I like the assessments in this class because they're like short, sweet, and simple.
Yeah.
They're not, asking us about every single thing that we have learned necessarily, but what we need to know.
Main topic highlights.
Yeah.
And that's really the purpose. And that reminds me, I might not have set this week's assessment up for multiple attempts. So please, if I haven't.
It doesn't say so.
Okay, then I will fix that before we leave tonight.
Yes,
I
please,
believe-
please.
Yes, I shall. I believe quizzes during the mod, quizzes are learning experiences. You will have a final exam. It will be comprehensive in that it will cover all the topics. How long it's going to be, I haven't decided yet. My usual smart alecky answer when somebody asks me, well, how long is the final? I'll say, I'll just pick a number out of the air. 203 questions, something like that, because I have no idea how long it's going to end up being.
How long will the final be?
Yeah. Yep. It'll be long enough to make you unhappy and short enough to make it possible to do, or something silly. But that's the one that you probably won't have multiple attempts, but I'll give you plenty of time.
Okay.
Because these are not supposed to be punitive, but they are supposed to tell me what you've learned, because it then helps me figure out what you might not have learned, and that's my fault, not yours. I have to fix that. I've done that many a time, gone back and changed my classes because I realized that I didn't cover what I thought I covered. So, I had a reputation down in Denver for having very, very tough finals, but they were fair, I thought. So, but then, as I say, I'll give you plenty of time to do it. You just won't have multiple attempts.
I mean, they can't be that far off from your assessments, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it won't be that far off from the assessments at all. Because the assessments are covering the stuff along the way. I'm not going to throw new material. Questions might be answered a little, or questions might be worded slightly different. No, they'll be there.
It will be only answer the third from the last question.
Pardon?
It will be only answer the third from the last question to get full credit.
Yeah. Well, there won't be anything like that. I'm not going to give you that kind of a test. But, so questions?
I know,
Pardon?
seriously.
I said I wouldn't mind that.
Oh, yeah, I bet you wouldn't. Think about where that might be appropriate. Not this month, though. I'll think about that. But, so any other questions or comments? Well, thank you all. This was fun tonight. And once again, thank you for the feedback you gave Paul.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. This is your campus.
Yeah.
She's just
So excited, like,
This is fantastic.
I literally just.
We're about to do that.
Distracted.
You guys are going to miss out on the candy, the cotton candy. Sorry about that.
Mom, can you make Nikki one? Because she will kill me if I have one. She doesn't.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the class and stop the Zoom session. Daniel and Stephanie, do you have any other questions or comments?
Nope.
If you get bored and you want to come up with some sort of extra credit assignment, I don't know if that's possible in your class, but I would love to do it personally to up my grade if you feel like doing it.
Okay, well, I will think about that. I won't make any promises,
No worries.
but I will think about it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you Monday.
All righty. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.